Okay, I started the recording at 7:42.
32.
The 32, sorry, yeah.
Okay, great. And I think you had the first thing on the agenda was audience for citizens and staff.
Correct.
Okay, is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment? Okay, so next we'll move on to a discussion of the budget. How about if we look at the busing information that came through? 1 minute, I just want to make sure I get everyone down who's here. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm missing somebody.
Ann?
Ann, thank you. Yep, sorry, Ann. I was missing one person, and it was you. Yeah, so we're okay now. Okay, let's look at the bus information. When I first looked at it, I thought it was doable, but today I studied it really hard and noticed that on one of the buses, the longest rider on the high school afternoon run would be on the bus for 1 hour and 49 minutes.
Yeah, I noticed.
That's excessive. In the morning, let's see. In the morning, 1 hour and 9 minutes and 1 hour and 6 minutes is what the elementary kids do. That makes me nervous because we have young kids and some of them don't have big bladders. So I get nervous about that.
Which, I had gotten 2 things, Rose. Do you, like, I have that form kind of with the gray lines, and then I had one that was highlighted, which has maybe
Mary
the first
Ellen,
begin.
both?
This one has at the very bottom, it has bold letters, whereas the other one has like a paragraph. Which one were you looking at?
I'm looking at the one with the bold lines. I don't see the one with the paragraph. You want to tell me what's in the paragraph?
It just, 3:25 is the current time that buses leave HES, and 3:25 was used to determine bus 1, 8 p.m. HES and bus 2 drop-off times.
Okay.
But if Parish Hill's extending, yes, so like the Parish Hill run in the afternoon would only finish at 3:45, so that bus would only get there at 3:45. So therefore those kids would be stuck at HES from 3:25 dismissal for 20 minutes.
No, I think if you notice in the morning, we have to start late because the bus can't drop the children off until 8:39.
Oh, right, at 8:44.
Yes, and
Yeah, we'd have to
8:45.
change our, yeah, that's right, we'd have to change our start time.
But the problem I see with that is we would have elementary children getting home at 4:37 and 4:46. And definitely the month of December, that's dark. And I'm thinking it's
I
at
think it's
least,
later than that, Rose. I think that's the 5 o'clock, isn't it?
I'm sorry, on the one I have, it says, but it might be different on the other one.
Yeah, I think they adjusted. I don't think, I'm not sure if the one that you have adjusted for the fact that there, I think it started with the 3:25. Well, let's figure it out. It's 1 hour and 49 minutes. Oh, no, never mind.
From 3:47 to 4:37.
Right.
So that's not quite an hour. But it sure is in the dark.
Yeah.
Hi, Rose.
Yes, Susan?
Susan Lovegreen. It's also a late, what does that say? Late for the end of school day as well, leaving at 3:47. So I agree too, that getting home at 4:37, that is kind of late in the dark. And that is, yeah, So that late or end of school, that means that, when does school end? So do we have an issue contractually with the teachers having to watch the students until the bus picks them up, or?
We would have to open later anyway, because the buses can't drop the students off in the morning until 8:39. So that means we'd start later and end later. The start later, certainly isn't as big a worry for me, but there might be parents with trouble with that.
I mean, you also are asking, potentially a kindergarten or preschooler to get on a bus at 7:30 in the morning and not get home to almost 5. That's almost later than some longer day than some adults have, so.
That's true.
Anne would like, hi, Mary Ellen. Anne would like to comment. Go ahead, Anne.
Okay, yeah, I think developmentally, it's kind of pushing the level of what would be expected. I think it could be stressful for kids. They're tired. I remember Russ talking about, he's a driver, his part-time job, I think. And he's done a lot of driving over the years, and he commented on kids falling asleep in the bus. Falling asleep would be one of the more benign
Turn that off if you're not gonna watch.
potential outcomes. There are other outcomes that could be more negative, falling asleep.
I do want to say, from all my years working in the elementary school, if a parent works, they're dropping their kid at daycare pretty early, and they're picking their kid at daycare up pretty late. So I think there are a lot of children who do deal with a long day like that. Yep, Mark?
Maybe to Mark Becker again, but just maybe to also play the devil's advocate in the fact that probably both runs, Parish Hill and Hampton Elementary School. This is based on all the numbers, which you have to do by law. I'm not disagreeing with the approach that we had to take here, because that's what's required. But it's also, there's a reality that not all the full population of students are on either one of these buses. So these numbers are probably the most conservative numbers that you could have.
Right.
But
We need to explore.
that's a difficult thing to figure out, because if you don't adjust for it right off the bat and they come out to be real, then you're not going to be very successful. When you get back to school and you've done this and the timing doesn't work out. So yeah, it feels like it's a hard thing to judge, whether going by these or just keep everything consistent and hope that the numbers that people drive in would offset it. But I don't know, I would be comfortable doing that. And I can give an example. My niece actually was in a town where they went down to 2 buses, and for like the first, I think for her whole school year, she'd come into school 15 minutes late. That whole bus was just basically marked tardy every single day, and they just kept going with it. So, I mean, I don't think that was the right thing, but that's what they did. So
I can't believe they marked them tardy.
Situation like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rose,
Yes, Juan?
hi, Juan Arriola. First, how many kids actually ride the bus to school, and how many kids actually ride the bus home? And a question for Mark. What town was that?
Oh, Eastford.
Thank you.
Well, I think your first question brings up a concern I have as well, is it's hard to say the COVID numbers now are going to be the same as in the fall. It's hard to say they won't be the same. But I don't know, Dr. Ola, do we have a record of how many children actually ride the bus?
Not on a daily basis, no. I could probably get you and email it to you, or have Lisa do that. How many come in via parent or a neighbor. That we can do. In other
I
words,
have a
drive in.
question.
Thank you very much.
And you'll have to
Would
wait
you
just a
say-
second. Other people are talking.
Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mary Ellen, you were saying something?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was at another meeting. I gather you're talking about whether we should go down to 2 buses. And I just wanted to ask the question. It's my understanding that whether or not a child is normally taking a bus or getting driven in by a parent or neighbor, that the bus still needs to go at least by their house, if not stopping.
The bus doesn't
So-
have to stop if they're not a regular rider, I'm sure of that. But I don't know if the bus has to go by. Do you know, Dr. Ola?
The bus has to go by the house as a bus stop because every child has the right to a seat on the bus for transportation into and to school and from school to home. Now, if obviously the child isn't standing there, then the bus is going to slow down. He may or she may, in fact, beep the horn. But other than that, and have the caution lights on, other than that, that's all she has to do if there is nobody there.
So if we have a
Okay.
child who's
Well,
not,
I did,
if we have a child who's not ridden the bus all year and it's day, say, 150 of the school year, the bus driver would have to slow down and put her caution lights on in front of the house?
They, Francola, they would have to slow down and if they suspect that the child, because the scenario you're telling me is the child for 150 days have not been on the bus. And the 151st day, the child is standing out there.
No, there's no child standing out there,
Oh,
just the
they would.
bus.
All right, they would have to slow down. They don't have to put their caution light on.
Okay, thank you. Mark,
so,
yes, Mary Ellen?
Mary Ellen, given that the route is not altered, I just want to point out on the chart that I made so that I could understand this, that the longest ride duration in the afternoon run for Parish Hill is 1 hour, 49 minutes. Ours are 1 hour, 17 minutes and 1 hour, 26 minutes. I think that's too long to have anybody on a bus. The ride into Parish Hill is 1 hour, 21 minutes for one of the buses. So given that the route is not altered, even if you don't have to stop, 1 hour, 49 minutes is really long.
Yeah. Okay,
Oh,
okay, Ann's waiting 2 more.
go ahead, let Ann go.
Okay, Ann, what,
Yeah.
Can anybody hear anything?
I
okay,
don't
so
think anyone,
Juan is saying he can't hear. Is there anyone who can hear Ann?
No,
I
No.
can't.
Okay,
No.
I don't know where the speaker is on my computer to hold the phone by it.
Do you
I'm
want to have
sorry.
her call me?
Okay, why don't you call Mary Ellen, because she works it better than I do, Ann.
Okay, all right, bye.
Great.
Bye.
Let me
Okay.
find my plug.
Mark?
I guess I would just be just a confirmation. I mean, that about the bus. I mean, it does go by every day, even if,
Okay,
we're driving in. So it still goes by our house and slows down. So
okay. So,
Rose?
yes, Susan?
Hi, Susan Lovegreen. If I could just sort of add from a parent perspective, my daughter attends Parish Hill. She's an 8th grader there, and the bus comes by our house to pick her up between 6:30 and 6:45 in the morning. And so she actually doesn't take the bus in. We drive her in because we actually don't have to leave our house until 7:15. And so that's just letting you know that there already is a long ride. And that would just, and the afternoon ride for some reason is much shorter. Coming home is a quick ride. In the morning, it is long. But it already is long. So perhaps going down to 2 buses might make it longer, causing maybe more parents to, I guess, having to drive their kids back and forth to school, which is not really something parents really want to do. It's just something that they make work because it's just better for their child. So, thank you.
Thank you. Half an hour in the morning is a lot of time. Yes, Mary Ellen?
Indeed.
Mary Ellen? Okay. I also wanted to point out on the little table that I made that the buses would be late for the start of school. And they
Yeah.
would be late picking the kids up at the end.
We'd have to change the hours that we had school. So we'd have to open later and dismiss later. And kids would get home in the dark during the month of December, maybe even a little bit in January and a little bit in November. Okay, so there's just so many questions with COVID and knowing how many students, that this would be a bad time, I think, to change the buses, but an hour and 49 minutes is a long time to expect a student to ride the bus to get home. So I kind of lean against doing this right now. Does anyone else have an opinion that they'd like to express?
Yeah, I'm against it. I'm against going down to 2 buses.
Okay, I should say, is there anyone? who-
Mary Ellen?
Yes, thank you, Mary Ellen. Is there anyone who thinks we should do that right now? All right,
Rose,
yes, Juan.
I just thought of 2 things. Maybe we could get the parents to sign a waiver at the beginning of the year where the condition, if the child has to be picked up by the bus, the school get 24-hour notice. Or we could try to figure out a neighborhood stop where all the kids could just congregate. There'd be one stop. Thank you.
You're welcome. We've looked into having a neighborhood stop, but the problem is there are no sidewalks in Hampton. And well, I think there might be some right on Main Street, but most of Hampton does not have them. And so we can't ask the children to be walking on the road, especially because in the winter there could be snow there or ice. So we've just had trouble trying to do that. And Dr. Ola, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I don't think parents can be asked to sign something that their kid's not going to take the bus. I don't know about if they have to sign something saying they'll give 24 hours notice to pick up. I hadn't heard that.
Francola, you can't, a parent has the right to put the children on the bus. So if a parent, for example, is ill and they don't know they're ill, so that the 24 hours issue doesn't work well, and we don't have any direct communication with the bus, so therefore we wouldn't be able to tell the bus driver as they do their route that, oh, by the way, Johnny needs to be picked up because mom is sick or dad is sick. So although that might sound theoretically okay, it doesn't work in practicality. And you cannot sign away that waiver for transportation, because you then are by allowing that to happen, you then as a district take on the issue of insurance, because you're now forcing or allowing a parent to drive a child into the school on their own. And yes, they have auto insurance, but because you force them to do that, or you allow them to do that, you then become part of that liability issue. So I would think that that would be a real problem.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Ola,
Yes, sir.
Juan Arriola, for the 24 hours, just out the top of my head, but we're not forcing the parents to sign a waiver. They would be asked voluntarily. And that way we would have a better count as to who's taking the bus on a daily basis. The fact that we don't know right now is hard because there can't be that many buses running with a lot of kids. Daily people tell me they see empty buses all the time. So I don't know where all the kids are. Thank you.
Francola, just to make sure we're on the same process. Yeah, a lot of the buses are empty because parents have chosen not to put their children on the bus during the COVID issue. But I also urge you to think about the idea that these are tiny children, and you can drive by a bus and not see ahead because they simply are too short to be able to look out a window unless they sit on their knees, and that we don't allow them to do.
Mary Ellen?
I'm raising my hand for Anne wants to speak. ahead.
Okay,
Yes, can you hear me?
yes,
Yeah,
thank
So
you.
it has, my comment has to do with Route 97 as a thoroughfare, because we may look at that road during non-traffic hours and think that there's no car movement or truck movement, but during the peak hours, that route is like a thoroughfare for traffic coming through, and a lot of drivers don't slow down at all. So that's just, on the subject of safety and dropping off and groups of children and that.
Thank you. Dr. Benson Clark has her hand up. She'd like to speak also.
Yes, I don't know the details, but I am on a regional board and we did make some changes to our buses. And there were some laws or legality. If you would like, I could easily access that research because I think some things have changed and that we were able to reduce a bus by possibly doing some of what Mr. Ariola said, but I really, I'm not on that subcommittee and I don't know the details, but I know there was a lot of work and a lot of complication behind it and that things have changed legally at the state with it.
All right, why don't you forward that work on to Dr. Ola?
Can we, Mary Ellen, can
Yes.
we ask our attorney to find out?
We certainly can.
Do you want me to send that first and then the attorney can do less work? They can just look at, actually, we use the same firm as you.
Yeah, my experience with our attorney is she doesn't take other attorneys' words for it. She usually checks it out herself.
Yeah, well, she's the same attorney, but okay.
Well, that'll work great then. She'll already have it done. But you can forward stuff to Dr. Ola and we can certainly look at it again.
Very good.
And Francola, I'd just like to point out that, remember, the regional district is a high school district, and we are dealing with pre-KK students who go on a bus. You also deal with rain, weather conditions, snow, so forth. So I'm not sure that whatever is appropriate for a high school is necessarily appropriate for an early elementary school.
And I agree. And it's also the elementaries that did it, and it's kind of the same structure. And I really don't remember the details. I truly don't. But buses need to be available if there's ever an emergency from a school too. It's complicated, unplanned evacuation of a school. So there need to be enough buses. So I truly don't remember, but we did a lot of research and I can forward it.
Okay, why don't you forward it rather than have us discuss on a memory that you're saying you're not entirely sure of? And we will check with our attorney. Okay. Does anyone else have anything to say about the buses before we move on? No. Okay. What's another area of the budget that we would like to discuss?
I just had a couple, Art Becker.
Yes, Mark.
I guess just a couple questions, just in relation to like, if you went to the short budget. I just had a question. We went down and ended up going down in heating oil and propane from last year. Do we think that's smart? And then also for diesel fuel and gasoline, we went down. I don't know, it just seemed like both of those would be areas where we should have stayed constant.
Dr. Ola, do you have a comment on that?
At the time that this budget was created, we got a bid that was markedly lower per gallon than we paid the year before. Although we added the same number of gallons, we factored in the fact that it was less by, let's see, it was $1.82 now, and it was, oh God, two something.
214 last year.
14. So that's the reason that we looked at that differential. And in hindsight, it's probably not a smart move because we didn't think about the reality of having to keep the HVA system running constantly 24/7, and therefore sucking all the basically the hot air out of the building and replacing with cool air, ambient air. So that may be a weakness in the budget. So I think that's a good point, although I would like direction because that would certainly add a few dollars to the budget itself.
So am I to understand that you locked in a bid below 214?
That is correct.
Wow. That's great because it's gone up.
Yeah.
So would you like to work on it and come back and let us know a figure that takes into account running the HVAC 24/7?
I certainly can do that. We're above what we thought we were going to be spending at 16,500 gallons. We just got our last delivery, I think a week and a half ago.
Uh-huh.
So I would have to check with Andy, and we're hoping that a full tank will take us through, depending on the ambient average temperature. I think they call it degree days. So I will check on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mary Ellen?
Yes, Mary Ellen? Oh,
That's Ann.
Anne?
Go ahead, Ann.
Yeah, well, this may not be the time to bring it up but I'm gonna just put this out on the table. It's not about the gas and the fuel prices. It has to do with the budget and early childhood. So if this is not the moment to talk about it, maybe we can talk about it a little later.
Okay, let me just check and make sure everyone has said what they want to say about the oil prices, and then we can move on to early childhood. Did anyone else have anything to say about oil prices? Okay, I guess not. So we'll move on to early childhood. And Anne, your comment would be great right now.
Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, I know that it's kind of challenging to budget for classes when there's so many unknowns, particularly in terms of enrollment. But I just wanted to share the most recent information that we have through the School Readiness Council and through the Office of Early Childhood for the preschool programs, which is, to the point of how do you plan, what should you budget for? And basically what we've been told is that you budget for funding pre-pandemic funding. So, whether it's 16 or 18 children, whatever the group was budgeting for before the problems with the enrollment that were pandemic related. So, but then when the school year starts, we are expected to draw down the amount based on the actual enrollment. So there are some unknowns, and we can hope that the confidence level will increase and that families will bring their kids back to in-person learning. But we don't know that for sure. So I think that, I think it's just important information for the group to have, that the Office of Early Childhood is very aware of these unknowns, and they created a structure for all the districts that kind of address that dynamic. So just to recap, that you budget, what we're doing now is you budget for full enrollment, and then when the time comes, you see how many people are actually enrolled, and you draw down the funds from the allocation based on the actual attendance.
Thank you,
I just
Ann.
thought that might be helpful for people.
Rose,
Yes, Juan?
I have a question. What
Yes.
is full enrollment according to the census?
Francola,
Oh, we
what-
don't have, that's not how the full enrollment works.
But Ann, I think Juan took your concept and carried it on. So I think Frank should answer his question.
okay,
Okay.
our
Well, I'll
slot,
try to answer it. I think for kindergarten, you have the enumeration, you have the number of children of that age who would be eligible for attending kindergarten. This is a little different because it's the projection of how many children actually attend is not just based on how many children there are.
Excuse me, Ann?
For the kindergarten and older children, to some extent, most of the numbers come from the actual existence of children of those ages, within the community. But for preschool, it's not required that children attend preschool. And so
Excuse me, Ann?
there's a lot of guessing that's involved, and I don't mean to make it sound even more confusing, but
Okay, Ann,
so we're in a position where we're recruiting young children to attend the preschool.
thank you, Ann. I think Juan's question moved beyond preschool. I think he was.
I think so too.
Yeah, so let's go with that. Let's move beyond preschool and talk about how we can estimate how many students might be coming to the elementary school.
Okay, so can I just make a little comment based on this?
As long as
There's
it's little.
one thing that we need to differentiate, to be real clear about, which is that for classrooms, like for 3rd grade or 4th grade or 5th grade, you don't base the amount of funding for that class or that team based on the enrollment. Whereas for preschool, you do. So it's not just, you have a class and you have X number of dollars allocated. You have a class, and based on the actual number of enrollees, that's how you determine the funding. It's a separate funding stream.
And I'd like to
So-
disagree with you there. Because what the number of students in pre-K determines is how large our grant is. It doesn't tell us how many
Right.
children we can have in our program. So if you look at it from that perspective, then we know we have a certain amount that we need to budget, and we need to budget it whether or not the grant is there.
Right, that's exactly what I was saying. But for if we're trying to sort of do apples and oranges in terms of the upper elementary grades, we need to be able to differentiate what applies to the fifth graders and what applies to the preschoolers. You know, we don't assume that they're the same. But I think the restructuring the teams based on enrollment is relevant. And to your point, Juan, I think, you know, when we have, say, hypothetically 5 children in grade 4, I'm not saying that we do, but if we did, that would prompt us to make some decisions about how we structure those groups.
Okay, Mark has a comment. Yes, Mark?
I did have a question, kind of in line with the budget for pre-K. Like if you go to the extended budget, when you go into line 1001, I see that for the certified staff, we basically added $26,000 to the budget. Was that a precursor with assuming that we're going to get less grant money?
Yes. Sally, yes.
Okay, so almost all the increases for that pre-kindergarten 1001 line were related to that type of thought process.
Yes, almost all of the change in this last version is due to the information we received from early childhood that we would only be able to draw down based on the number of students that are enrolled.
Okay.
So we expect 10, so that's what we used for the funding expectation.
Thank you.
Francola, just remember that right now we had, it fluctuates. Right now it's 8, it was 9, it was 7. So we chose 10 as a theoretical number of students, even though we have, back to Juan's question, we have actual funding availability for 16 seats at $6,000 a seat. So you can see that there is a shortfall of, I mean, because it doesn't matter whether I have 3 people in that classroom or 20 people in that pre-K, the dollars to support the teacher and staff plus supplies and equipment remain the same. The funding changes, the grant changes, that's all. Not that that's all, but.
So I'm going to ask Juan if we are interpreting his question correctly.
You're doing great. One more question, though. This is one
Okay.
again. How many 3- and 4-year-olds do we actually have in Hampton that have been counted?
Francola, I can't answer that question with precision. We do have pre-K signups. My mind, I think, is April 26th, but it's at the end of April, and we will give you, hopefully by the 28th, your next board meeting, a very clear picture in terms of the number of parents, I'm sorry, the number of students who have been signed up to attend preschool by their parents.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ola.
Okay. Great. I think it was smart to budget the way that this was budgeted, assuming the school would have to pick up the amount for a teacher if the grant got cut. So I'm glad to see that happen. Are there any other areas in the budget that we wanted to discuss? Mary Ellen?
And had a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it appears that the Office of Early Childhood has gone above and beyond to avoid cutting the budget. So that's the spirit of having the funding be available based on previous enrollment. So I'm not saying, you know, that it's a done deal, but I think they've made every effort to have the funding be available if the students are there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments?
Rose, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mark. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, I actually had questions on going back to ECS and MBR, but we can go through those after your question too.
Okay. Are you giving me the floor?
Yep.
Yes.
Thank you. I wanted to talk about the special schedule. The physical ed teacher is there 4 days. And if co-teaching was eliminated, she'd be there only 3.5 days. If health class was combined, it'd be 2.5 days. And then art is there 2.5 days. But if co-teaching is eliminated, it would be 1.5 days. And if art class was combined, it'd be 1 day. And that would also mean cleaning the rooms at school. But currently we have 10 40-minute co-teaching sessions per week. So that's 2 days. We could hire a certified teacher in reading and math and help the kids that way if we worked on the schedule.
Dr. Ola, would you like to comment on that?
I would, thank you. Frank Ola, the problem that we have when you say combine, we split each team in half. Half goes to art and half goes to health. And the reason for that split is that the art room where they do all of their work is limited to 10 students by size, because we have the COVID restrictions, we have the plexiglass between the students, but we can only physically put in 10 students. And so therefore we had to do the half and the half. So that aspect of it, unless they CDC completely changes the COVID restrictions, we can't do that. The other piece is that, just so you know, that the music teacher, who seems to have an entire day of co-teaching, has had to do that on Tuesdays because of the restrictions on any kind of choral or musical instrument playing inside the building. So because we could not offer any of that, we had to use her. She's only here 2 days a week, and she works over at Chaplin the other 3 days. So she is obligated to be with us. So after vacation now, she's starting now, but after vacation, she will have Tuesdays filled with her choral and musical instrument classes again. And some of that will be outside and some of that will be inside with less social distancing as per the CDC. So I just wanted to be, just in case you were concerned about the music teacher who seems to have 50% of her time with us as co-teaching, that is no longer the case. Thank you.
Yes, Mark?
I do want to just maybe ask Dr. Ola, I also believe there's aren't there restrictions, like as far as health goes, like that the health program, I believe like you can't necessarily commingle certain grades. I believe what you're teaching a fifth grader might be different than teaching a sixth grader. And I'm not sure if you want to, I mean, a one age difference makes quite a bit of difference at that age. So I thought that was the case, but right now it's partially because of the age too and what each health program's learning. But I also think that's an example where don't these people also cover different duties, which I don't know, maybe it was or was not on the schedule, but like, you have to have people physically in the building to do duties like bus duty and lunch duty, recess duty, end of the day bus duty. So some of these people that might seem like they're not doing anything during the day are also helping with those additional pieces of the puzzle that you have to man. You can't just have a skeleton crew and not support these other parts of it too. So I do know that's going on as well. But
Francola, that's true. I think the issue is very, as the kids get older, the health issue gets more sensitive, I guess is the best way to say it. And to be very honest, girls in sixth grade are going to have to face issues differently than the girls in fifth grade. So therefore, there are some of those age differentials. And then there's sensitivity issues of, what can you show in health class to a third grade class as compared to what you would do in a fourth grade class. So yeah, there are some sensitive issues that you bring up that are concerning, especially as the children get older, especially in Team C. And you are correct. Every teacher has at least 2 duties, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. So for example, our art teacher, even though she has a half a day, she does take up office duty. And she is taking it from Lisa, who is obligated to have her half-hour lunch. So she covers the lunch duty while the paras and some of the teachers are out either at recess or having their own lunches. Remember, all of our teachers supervise lunch in their team classroom. So they have that duty. And then in the morning and in the afternoon, we have teachers and paras who work with the kids as they get out of their cars to make sure they don't get out the wrong side of the car and some bus car, whatever, transverses down the driveway. So we can keep the kids safe. So we also have them out there to announce that certain parents are picking up certain kids so that the kids go out in some kind of a sequence that is not just everybody running out to look for the cars. So yes, you are correct. Every teacher, every para has a duty both morning and evening, or morning and afternoon, sorry.
Ellen?
I like to also advocate for not combining classes. As you've probably heard in the news that students may now go down to 3 feet apart. Dr. Ola and Bev explained that we're trying not to do that. And one of the things that's interesting about that, the students can be 3 feet apart, the teachers still need to stay 6 feet away from them. And even though students can be 3 feet apart, they still define a close contact as someone who is within 6 feet for 15 minutes. So what they've advised is that if you do go down, you may end up quarantining more people. Because even if you have cohorts, the whole cohort may have to be quarantined if you're letting yourself or your school system go down below the 6 feet. So I like keeping the kids as separate as we can, like on the current schedule. And also the sanitizing, which is built into some people's schedules, should still continue because there are materials that are shared among the different grade levels and different cohorts. So that time, I think, still has to stay in the schedule because we are not at the end of COVID at this time. And very likely, we're going to be looking at this in the fall.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, we also have to plan, at the very least, we have to plan to be in it in the fall, because if we don't plan, we'll be in trouble if we are still there. Okay, is there any other area of the budget? Yes, Mark?
I, anybody else that wants to interject can do that. I've asked a lot of questions already, but I did want to get Sally or Dr. Ola to just, what, is there any changes from the last meeting where we took, well, I wasn't at the last meeting, but the meeting before that where ECS was being held constant? And then also, do we know anything between the Parish Hill budget and or anything else that gives us any guidance with MBR?
Okay, Francola. At this point, Kevin Chambers, who is our contact with the state relative to MBR, we contacted him. Sally directly contacted him, and I received his email, and he has no way yet to determine the minimum that we have to spend per child, because the state legislature hasn't created the framework for that to be calculated. And ECS, Sally, please, if I'm incorrect here, because you're up to date in terms of the actual, you may have gotten another set of information today, but the ECS seems to be stable.
I have no additional information.
And we don't know about Parish Hill at all.
Yeah, so
I have a
Mark,
question.
Mark, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you
Okay.
very much.
Yes, Mary Ellen?
I think Sally started to talk. No?
I didn't hear her. If she,
Okay. Having said that, I think we should keep our specials small, in small groups. There is one thing I need to ask about, the co-teaching that's being done where the specials go into the general ed classrooms, the team classrooms. I'm not sure that's necessary. I don't know how it's working out. I don't know if there's any feedback from administration about whether that's a necessary thing to keep.
Francola, I think to answer your question directly, we have experienced something that we didn't anticipate, and that is that the co-teacher, with the expanded size of the class and the distancing between kids, if you're a teacher, you're at up at front of the classroom and you have a para, then the helping teacher or the co-teacher is able to work with kids in a manner that is very effective, especially in, and I will say this for sure, in Team A and in Team C. A first and Team second, C secondly, in terms of the need for that co-teacher. And that has also allowed, especially in Team A, our Katie, our Team A teacher, lead teacher, the time to be able to go across the hall to see Mr. Gervais, to make sure that he and she are in sync with SRBI planning and the tutoring process that is in place for our 5 first grade little boys who have issues. So that has facilitated the planning and the communication between teachers in order to effectively implement both SRBI and tutoring for our, especially in Team A. unfortunately, just again, because Lark is now teaching music and in terms of the chorus and instruments, she will no longer be in that role, and that entire time frame is now has a dearth of support for Katie and our little boys.
Dr. Ola, Juan. Doesn't that teacher you just mentioned have a planning period? Couldn't you do that on her own planning period?
She can. I think if you think about the amount of planning that she has 40 minutes each day. Those 40 minutes are the same or coordinate with whether it's music, art / health or PE. So her students go there. She also has to deal with her paras and making sure that not only her planning is done, but her paras are up to date and involved. And if there's a problem, she obviously has to communicate. So I would say you're absolutely correct. She has a planning period. I think sometimes that in a circumstance, the ability to leave because there's another teacher involved in your classroom to communicate with your your key support person. And remember, she also, because of this grouping of our little boys, has to deal with 3 of them, has to go down and see our special ed teacher. And it's much obviously easier for her to go down to his classroom than for him to come up in his wheelchair to her classroom. So yeah, you can point that out. I just think it's I don't know what to say. It's kind of, I don't want to say picayune, but it is. I'll just leave it at that.
Thank you. So from this discussion, am I to gather that there's no way to reduce the time for the specials teachers?
I would say, Francola, I would say that there's always, if you direct us to do a cut in the time frame for specials teachers, I would say that it becomes very difficult to schedule, but not impossible. So if, for example, as Juan pointed out, the PE teacher can be cut a half a day to 3.5 days. If that's what you feel is appropriate, then and you say that's where we're going to do the cut, then we will make sure that that happens as effectively as we can.
Okay, thank you. Is
Mark
there
has-
any,
Mark has his hand up.
Mark? Oh, you're
Muted.
muted, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I guess at least just my perspective on it is, from a pandemic standpoint, we are still trying to figure out what will happen when we get back to normal. And my own personal hope is that we get back up to the numbers that we had pre-pandemic. And obviously we have to get into next year to understand that, but I'd really like to plan for maybe a optimistic scenario. So I would not necessarily be a proponent for cutting any specials at this point.
Okay, thank you. Pandemic does make this difficult. Okay, are there any other areas that people would like to look at? Areas in the budget?
Just a comment.
Yes, Ann? Yes,
Um,
Ann?
I think along the lines of COVID and trying to anticipate, we don't want to forget about the importance of social emotional learning. And that's been an area that's been highlighted on the statewide level as well. So, you know, we can look at the numbers and the anticipation of numbers and the guesstimation, but one thing that we want to make sure we remember is the importance of providing support. And I think that's related to the specials. It's not only related to the specials, but it includes the specials because support for children comes throughout the day. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to point out something that I think was my mistake because I was misremembering. In the budget dated 3/15/2021, it doesn't give the principal a raise. And I thought we were going to go with a 2% raise. And I think this could have something to do with my confusion because I thought she asked for no raise this year, but it had been last year. So can we give her the raise everyone else is getting too? Everyone other than the superintendent?
This is Sally. So
Hi.
she is getting a 2% raise. The budget for last year had her at a 2% raise, but she didn't receive that raise.
Okay,
So by not showing it this year, she is still getting that raise.
okay, thank you. I feel better. Okay. So we covered transportation specials, pre-K, oil. Is there any other area people would like to cover? Okay, hearing none. I'm not sure what to do. It's really hard when we don't know the MBR. And it's really hard because we don't know what COVID's going to bring. So, yes, Mark?
Just, I think also I would be interested to understand a little bit more about MBR before, just because I would like to know, like, if we go to the Board of Finance with a budget and yet we were able to reduce our budget by a certain amount per MBR, I think typically they'd like us to, you know, take a hard look on where we can do such things. And so I just would like to be prepared to know like what our potential is. It would be good to know, knowing going into it, I support this budget. It's a fairly meager increase for taking on some of the increases. I think we must have made some cuts because we know from a preschool support standpoint, our budget went up by 34,000, yet we're only requesting 13,000. So, you know, for the most part, you know, I think Sally and Frank did a good job trying to figure out where they could keep this as low as an increase as possible. But I think we have to be mindful that, you know, there's a very good chance that we might be asked to be something less. So we just got to know where that comes from and how much less that could be. That's my fear, without knowing those facts about MBR.
I think we're pretty safe when it comes to MBR if we go with a 0%. MBR has nothing, has never had us go below 0. So I don't think we need to at this point look beyond that. I'm just trying to get to my last page.
Rose, I have a question.
Yes, Juan?
our grant money, including our COVID money, where is that being spent?
Where is it being spent currently, or where do we plan to spend it next year?
Next year?
Dr. Ola, can you answer that?
Francola, the ESSER two funds are being addressed in terms of the summer school programming. Because we have the students who need to have not only social emotional support, but academic support. And especially in, again, Team A. But we do have a couple of kids who were hoping, now we can't force them to go to summer school, but we are funding summer school through the ESSER two funds. And then the other pieces is to support the purchase, the upgrading of our technology, because one of the problems we have run into is our Chromebooks are old and they are not supporting our software programs that we currently have called Success Maker and some others, but and so therefore we have to put money into replacing Chromebooks for that. So that ESSER two funding will be done in put into that area along with a classroom for air conditioning, for ventilation, because we have our school security issues that we keep our doors open. The problem is already obvious. If you keep your doors open, then your school security is completely out of whack. The problem is in our pre-K and our kindergarten. If you keep the door open, it's not that the people will come in, it's the kids will run out. And so we want to keep those doors closed and the room air conditioned. So we're looking for funding for the HVAC system in those two classrooms. The next set of funding is to include special education issues, because we do have students who are older, who either run or have behavioral issues, and we want to make sure that the rooms are secure. So we want to have air handling systems that will also work during the warm, hot months of August, September, and part of October. So the second ESSER fundings, it's called ESSER 3, or there's another acronym for it, SRP, but that funding, we're going to work on that issue. And we have some other problems that we are still trying to address in terms of costs. So that's the type of funding that we're looking at, including, remember, we still have to do all the sanitizing and supplies, PPEs, all of that kind of excessive costs that we incurred this year will have to be done next year. So we do have those costs that will be included in the it's actually ESSER 3 funding, which we don't even have an application yet. So we know the dollar amount, but we don't have an application process. And our application for ESSER 2 goes in April the 19th, and we can send it in. We don't know if it's going to be accepted by the state and then ultimately by the federal government. So that's where we're looking to spend our money.
Dr. Ola, what is the estimated cost of the air conditioning, and what is an estimated cost for the operation for a year?
What operation?
Air conditioning. Can you say one air conditioner or two?
Well, no, they're the air conditioning units are not in the windows. They are up high. They have a centralized compression unit on the outside of the building that sends the chilled gases up into the distribution point on two classrooms. So one processor does 2 classrooms. At this point, we have, again, you're asking me for numbers. My estimated recall is about $7,800, but we have to then add to that electrical costs, because now we have to pull cable from our distribution box. And to be very honest, I have no idea what the distance of cabling is that will be required for the air conditioners on both sides of the hallway once they get in. And that Andy is working with Hometown Heating, the estimator for the project. And we're using our school electrician. And once he gives us a price, that'll be added. So I'm estimating about $11,000. The running costs, I have absolutely no idea, but they're high efficiency units. And they are Mitsubishi units.
Can I
Okay,
ask something,
yes, Mary
Mary
Ellen?
Ellen? Are they both heat and air conditioning? Are they mini splits?
They're mini splits, and thank you for the name. I couldn't remember the name. Mini splits, and they can be for both heat and air conditioning. We don't have a problem with the heating in our building. So that's just an added cost, because then you have your heat pump reversing itself and blowing the hot air in. I did not price it to be a combined air conditioning and heating unit. So I can't answer your question, but yes, it could
I
be.
was just wondering if it would at all reduce our need for the oil in those 3 rooms.
I'm going to guess that the percentage of air in the entire school relative to those 3 rooms is relatively minuscule,
Small, yeah.
very small. And
Mhm.
so, I have no way of calculating the BTUs required to heat those rooms compared to, saving of gallonage. I have no idea.
Yeah, I was just thinking maybe the estimator might be able to shed some light on that.
I certainly can ask. I'm not sure he's that sophisticated either. He knows how much the equipment is and what he needs to do to install the equipment. I have no idea if he has the engineering background to determine BTUs relative to oil, relative to square footage over 24/7. I don't know. Interesting question, but
Okay, Dr. Benson Clark would like to add something.
Yeah, it's from quite a while ago, but you're right, I neglected to take my hand down, so I apologize. There's an extraordinary need right now and going forward with our multi-age for flexibility. And the specials teachers help allow us to have some flexibility to meet student needs, which, as Dr. Grunenberg said, our social emotional needs are just increasing. And I do state work, as many people on the board here do, and it's daunting, everyone. And on a personal note, and you'll probably read this story, a RAM Board of Ed member, good looking, affluent, best guy on the planet, took his own life Sunday night. And we just lost a student who took their own life. And I share that because the parents of our students, some of them are really struggling. And this is such an unprecedented time. And we need to give kids academic supports, but social emotional supports. And we're all struggling with that. And I think the specials teachers have really allowed us to have some flexibility. I just wanted to share that from a curriculum and a SEL, a special ed and a general ed perspective.
Dr. Oler, The other, and thank you, Judy, for that. She reminded me that part of the grant, Juan, is to add a day to our counselor in school, specifically to address SEL issues for both students, teachers, because they have to deal with their students in terms of their SEL pieces and training for them, as well as parents. And really the parents, through our school nurse, Beverly, she hears the stories that are frustrating with parents, as does Sam, but Beverly especially. And she then makes the connection with Laura Sorrell, who is our counselor, to help parents, almost more than students, because remember, our students are young. They don't understand parent tensions, and they don't understand anger levels and frustrating or issues that parents are having. And we do have, and we continue to have lunches being prepared this vacation for parents to pick up lunches, 5 lunches for the week that the kids are out of school. This COVID issue is impacting a lot of levels, and that food is one of those basic levels, and it goes on from there.
Thank you. I did have a question about the cafeteria. It's 800 and then 850 that we're transferring out, 7,550 more dollars than we did before. Is there a reason for that?
Franco, I'm gonna let Sally runs the numbers. Remember, that is a cafeteria issue that we do not, that's EastCon's bailiwick for us. So I'm not at all familiar with that aspect of this budget, other than the numbers that Sally has run for us relative to the EastCon input. So Sally?
Yes, so our fund balance for the cafeteria continues to decline, so we have less money to carry over each year.
Okay,
And we no longer have any income.
okay, that makes good sense. Thank you. Okay, so what is the board's pleasure? Do we want to, at this point, leave the budget where it's at? 0.66? Until we have more information?
Mary Ellen,
Yes, Mary Ellen.
yeah. Yes. My answer would be yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to express an opinion?
I'd support the budget as is.
Yeah, this is Anne.
Okay, so,
Am I unmuted?
You're unmuted.
Yes, I agree to move it forward as proposed.
okay. I am going to also support the budget as proposed at this time. Let me go back and look at the agenda. Did the agenda say we might vote on this?
Yes, it did.
It did, thank you. I have too many papers again.
Discussion and possible action.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so is there anyone who would like to make a motion? Oh, 1 minute, I'm taking notes. I better get ready for the motion. Okay. Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion? Mark?
I would say so moved.
Okay, that was Ann.
Well, and do you want to make the motion then?
I can make the motion, so I move that we recommend the adoption of the budget as proposed.
Yeah, I don't like your phrasing, Ann, I'm sorry. I would rather it say move to approve the budget of, and then we need the numbers.
That's fine with me. That's fine with me.
Okay, so let me just go back to find what's the bottom line number here?
Oh, I can give it to you, Rose.
Okay,
2,118,230.
$130. So Ann moved to approve a budget of $2,118,230 for the,
If Mark wants to make the motion, I would be fine with seconding it,
thank you.
since he articulated it.
No,
You
all
okay
here,
with that, Mark?
and I was just reading what it was,
What?
so could I finish that? I'm gonna go back to the beginning. So whoever moved to approve the budget of $2,118,230 for the 2021-22 school year. Fiscal year.
Fiscal year.
Fiscal year. Okay, I don't care who makes the motion, as long as someone does.
Ann can make the motion and I'll second it. How about that?
Okay, that's perfect. Any discussion?
Just,
I have a question.
Okay,
When might we know, will be soon that we know about MBR and about ECS, or is that going to take more than a month?
Last year we did not, this is Sally. Last year we didn't find out about MBR until sometime in the summer.
And how about educational cost sharing grant?
I think that's going to depend on when the state has a budget.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
okay. Any further discussion? I'm gonna call, yes, Mark?
just in our motion, which I probably should have mentioned this before, do we ever talk about, like, as presented on the budget dated 3/15/2021, do we want that date in the, do we have that usually in the motion? Doesn't really matter. I guess it doesn't really matter.
Better.
I don't remember at all, Mark, I'm sorry.
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right, so I'm going to call names like you show up on my computer. So Mark,
Yes.
Mary Ellen,
Yes.
Ann,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Juan,
No,
and I am voting yes. The motion carries. So we can move on to audience for staff and citizens. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment? Kathy?
Okay. I realize that you still have a lot of unknowns and that you just passed the budget. But there are a few things when we talk about social emotional learning and the struggle of the families. Our community and our citizens are also having struggles from the pandemic. This school is shrinking in numbers from year to year, from October 1st enrollment to the previous October 1st enrollment. MBR may not end up being applied this year. I don't know what the legislature is going to do with it, but Last year, the drop in students that we had, which was over 23, the budgets could have dropped $269,000. I certainly wouldn't think of ever that as a request. However, as the school shrinks, if it wants to survive, there are going to have to be changes. We talk about comparing things with Union. That's come up with from some of the members. I did get Union's budget. They're struggling with all the same issues that you are as far as the size of the school and separating. But, they have phys ed and health. Theirs is 0.3. Art is 0.3. They have a model that is a principal / superintendent. I know we had that before, and that was something that we flipped back to having separate, and there were reasons for that. But as the school continues to decline in numbers and the costs go up, there are going to have to be changes in staffing in order for this school to be able to survive. And also, it's going to get to a critical mass point. I'd like to know, number one, what the drop is for students from October 1st of last year, from the previous year. I'd also like to know how many kids are moving up from preschool to kindergarten. What your estimated kindergarten class is, because I believe the one now is 6 students, if I'm correct, that's moving up into the 1st grade. So I'd like the student counts on that. And also, did you have bus routes that go with these estimations of time? And if those would be made available?
Kathy,
And
I
that's
want,
it. Thank you.
I just want to say that it would help if you'd put what you want in writing in an email for,
Yeah, I will. And
Okay.
also, the grants and what they will be assigned to, because I know we applied for a REAP grant that was supposed to be completed. The application was supposed to be completed shortly, and what's that going to be used towards also. Thank you.
you're welcome. I'm sure I wasn't able to write fast enough to get everything.
No, I'll send it by email.
Thanks. Any other?
Yes, I'd like to say something. This is Dana Ariola.
I did.
Just 2 things that I think maybe you misspoke, but there was a comment that the MBR has only been held to 0. And I think that there was 1 year anyway that I think it dropped by $120,000 or $40,000.
That was because it was combined with the high school.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, whether or not it is based on student count, if the MBR is going to be lower than 0, then the taxpayers, I'm pretty sure, are going to hold you to it, because they always have. The second thing was with the buses, and just talking about them being empty now. They were empty pre-COVID. We had a hard time getting a number out of whoever it was prior to Frank. I can't remember. And I believe the first selectman, Al Cahill, went down for a couple of days and counted how many kids got off the bus in the morning and how many got on in the afternoon. And there were less than 20 kids on each of the buses. This is pre-COVID. The buses are empty. People are noticing them. This is not a new problem or a COVID problem. This has been going on for a really long time. Nobody's suggesting, I don't think my husband was trying to suggest that you force parents to, but there are schools that do have the waivers, and it can be reneged at any time. And I don't know how you facilitate if somebody gets up and says, I need to use the bus. I know I brought my kid to school every morning myself, because she would have been on the bus as a little child for a long time. So if she had to get on the bus because I couldn't take her, she went to a neighbor's house. She went up or down the road, and there's no sidewalk, but I never allowed India to be put on the bus at our house. The bus stopped at Nagy's, the bus stopped at Roberts, and no, she understood at the age of 5 that the bus isn't going to stop for you too. You can walk down the hill to Nagy's, or you can walk up the hill at Roberts. I know there are roads that are a little dangerous here, mine being probably one of the most. Nobody's suggesting that kids are walking anywhere on Route 6, but Bennett Drive,
You go to Chaplin and all those kids on those side roads, the buses aren't going down those side roads. The kids are coming out on Route 6 and they're gathering there and they're being picked up where there is no sidewalk. So no, I mean, we grew up in the town where we all did. I never got the bus in the front of my house. We all went down to the tree. And if you lived around Parsonage Road or that circle, you walk down to the town green. I'm not suggesting that extent. Rodriguez says the bus never went down Hammond Hill. The kids walked up to the top. I certainly wouldn't suggest that. But there are some places I think where we can have communal stops for our kids and definitely for the high school. I also think when we're talking about high school kids, how many of them drive? You're talking about, yeah, they all ride the bus. No, they don't. No, they don't. So I think we need to do a little bit more thinking in terms of the bus, in terms of communal stops, and in terms of the possibility of a waiver and that little technicality of how, in case there's an emergency, you can figure out how to get that child to school. Somehow the school can figure it out, or some kind of system so that they could. The other thing is, when you're dropping the kids off, if the kids aren't on the bus, you don't have to stop. You got 10 kids on the bus, you got 5, you know who are there. So it's not like you have to go all the way around the town, because if the kids aren't on the bus, you don't have to go and stop in front of the kid's house, especially that when you got about 10 kids. One more thing, special teachers. I'm glad that you are dealing with the emotional things that kids are going through, especially kids, by increasing that time, because it's needed. But I think, I feel like you had a contract. Last year we heard that you had to keep those special teachers on because of insurance, because you had a contract that said that they had to be there at least half time. So you changed your contract so that wouldn't have to be anymore. Why did you do that if you're going to continue on? I know you had to give up some language, and I haven't studied your contract, and he missed the end of it because he had COVID. So I haven't looked at it, but you must have given up some language along the line in order to do that, to say, okay, you're not going to get insurance anymore. You're going to have something else negotiated. Why bother if you're just going to keep them on? If the kids need the academic support, and because of COVID, I don't doubt that they do, then get a certified person in there that's certified in reading and math. Do not use a gym teacher and an art teacher that are not certified in those areas and say, but that's the best we can do for our kids, because it isn't. Your SRBI person, I think, that you hired is spread very thin, but maybe because that person is certified, and I think I remember you saying with certification or expertise in reading, then get somebody else to do the technology and put that person in the classroom. Because if kids really need the academic help, get somebody in there that can really give it to them. Not the gym teacher and not the art teacher, somebody who has expertise in reading and math. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments? I will entertain a motion to adjourn
So moved.
in a second.
I'll second Mary Ellen.
All those in favor?
Right.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain? We're adjourning at 9:06.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.